Hello. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today we are, where did my notes go? Where did
I'm
my
not
notes
sure.
go? Okay, I know, I got to find them. Thanks for joining us today. Today is part 2 of a 4-part series where we were talking about how to convert your website into your unpaid salesperson. So last week we talked about calls to action, and this week we're going to be talking about design. I have 2 more parts coming up in next week and the week after. But today we're going to be talking about design. So you may not realize how much a very well-designed website can affect your conversion rates, but it can have a huge impact. People care about design. It impacts your credibility. And there's ways that our minds work that a lot of design schools, they teach about the psychology of what people are looking at when they're looking at design. So how does their eyes scan the website? What is it they're looking for? What draws their attention? So Angela is going to go into a lot of that for us today. Angela is our speaker today. So she is the owner of Be Bold Branding, and she's also works with, she and I work together a lot on clients all the time. I'm Jennifer Hoffman, and I'm the owner of Coalition Web Design. So we have about 30 minutes today. We're trying to make these very short and easy and helpful. So if you haven't already, make sure that you RSVP at the link. I'm going to put it here in the comments in just a minute. And after today's presentation, we will be sure to send out the cheat sheet that you can reference after. But that's all I have. So Angela, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. You were cutting out there a bit, your audio, but now you're better. I just wanted to let you know, just in case
Okay.
We're dying. But we're all good now, and I'm going to be doing most of the talking today. So here we go. So let's start this out. So let's start it with a quote. Why not? Good design is good business. Thomas Watson. I believe he was the CEO of a little company called IBM, and I think they made a couple bucks. Good design is important, and good design, it almost fades into the background. It's good because you don't notice it. Something that's glaring and in your face and hideous, you're going to notice, right? So good design helps make a good first impression. It helps you stand out. It helps you build those relationships with customers. And it keeps your website easy to use. So we want to design our websites in a way that's good for our business, that's visually appealing. A lot of marketers talk about SEO and analytics and lead magnets, and all that stuff is important. But if you're not starting with a foundation of good design, you're not doing yourself any favors. So what does that look like on a website? How can we figure out what good design is versus bad design? So let's first take a look at some statistics about good design. So according to research from Stanford, 46% of people will judge you. Lo and behold, people judge books by their covers. We all do it. We judge a website the minute we land on it, based on the design of the site. So it's really important.
Design, they judge the credibility of the business.
Yeah. So they decide whether they're going to do business with you or trust you at all. In the first, I think it's like milliseconds that they decide that. So it's really important to have a good design that's professional looking. 3/4 of people, they want to read something that's beautifully designed versus plain old boring text. Who wants to read the phone book? Well, we don't even have phone books anymore, do we? That's how old I am. All right. But you know what I mean, right? Given 15 minutes to consume something, people would rather read something that's beautifully laid out than something that's ugly and boring. And this was a study done by Adobe. So if you want people to read your website, you need to make it look attractive and help them through that process. Almost 40% of people will actually leave your site if they don't find it visually appealing anymore or attractive. They will take off. So that's a whole lot of people that you would have lost. That's almost half your visitors, right? So let's look at the first point here that I want to make about visually appealing design. So there's a little thing called the rule of thirds. And if you're a photographer at all, you're probably familiar with this principle. And it's also the main principle in web design as well. So with the rule of thirds, you're visually dividing an image horizontally and vertically into thirds. So odd numbers are more visually appealing to the eye than halves, than straight up halves. So I'll show you an example just based on photography to start with. Okay, so on the left you see, a novice photographer's photo. They capture the focal point of the image right in the middle, and it doesn't mean that it's a bad photo, but it's just not as pleasing. If you look to the one on the right, that one's more visually appealing because it has a little bit more intrigue. It adds some zest to the photo, right? It's just the way our eye works. So that's the difference in photography. Now in websites, I want to show what happens. So this is, for instance, the top part of your banner image is the hero image, what we call that first, big photo that most websites have. So these are the intersections that our eyes go to. And when objects or text are placed in these 4 points, we really pay attention and notice them. So in terms of website design, you can place the key items that you want people to take note of in these intersections, and they will help you boost your conversions. So let's take a look at how our eyes work. So our eyes look in specific places most of the time. Top left corner is going to be your highest value real estate in terms of that grid of 9 there. So you want to place like your unique value proposition here. A lot of logos are placed in the top left corner of the website. People notice them, they focus on that. The next spot they're going to focus on typically is right below that. So you want to put like a button here. What do you want them to do? Buy now, or whatever that is, your call to action, right? And then the next 2 points are top right and then bottom right. So that's the rule of thirds. And in action, I want to show you. So this is, when you land on a web page, you get that first initial image, the hero image, with the person's, motto or differentiator. And you can see that he has placed the important elements that he wants people to notice in those 2 top left-hand spots. So what he does, and then what he wants you to take. I think it's start here. I can't see the line is going through there, but that's the action he wants you to take. Those are on the 2 most important parts of that grid. Same over here, Les Mills. This is, exercise company, what they're all about. And it doesn't have to be exact, but a lot of websites follow this trend because they do know they're just capitalizing on what they do know, where the eye goes, and capitalizing on that fact. Okay, moving on to my second point. This has more to do with how people read. So text. So that's how people notice, your initial banner image. So the F layout. Now I'm not trying to cuss here. This is just the way your eye reads. So in printing, these used to be called the Z or Z, depending on what country you're from. I'm from Canada. I guess you say Z, letter Z, like for zebra. It used to be the Z layout. So your eye follows left to right, just like how we read, and then goes across and down, and then left to right again. In a website, it's more like an F, and I'll show you a heat map of what that looks like. So heat maps, there's software out there that you can install on your website to see where your eye is tracking. And so you'll notice a distinct pattern here. People start on the left and they'll have a look. They're scanning the website, and they're if something interests them, then they'll move their eye to the right. Then they'll go back down to the left, scan some more, and then go off to the right. So that's important to know in breaking up your text. So you want to have headings to help people guide them to the sections that you think they'll find interesting, right? You can see this on your own website. If you install software like Hotjar, you'll be able to tell what's going on your own website in this aspect. So again, this is how the eye moves. So left to right, then down, then left to right again, and so on. And you'll notice that they only go so far. So that top part of your website is really valuable. You want to make sure you include the most important stuff at the top.
And that's one of our topics in this series. I think it's next week where we'll be talking about what the most important things are to put in that top section of your website.
Yep, that's next time. So we'll talk about that way more in depth next Thursday. So the third point I want to make is talking about fonts. Fonts. People like fonts. They like to use fonts, but how many is too many, and what's a good number? So readability is key here, right? Fancy scripts are cool and all that, but you want to use that sparingly. You want to make sure that your font is readable on your website, on mobile, everywhere, right? So if you do have a scripty font, you might want to choose something simpler, like for the main body of the copy. So this is a website we did for a client of ours recently. And you'll notice we did use a scripty font, but we used it in a large lettering for headlines only, and then we chose something more simple. The other rule to keep in mind here is to keep fonts to a minimum. So one of the do's is, do keep fonts to a minimum, make sure they're readable, and also anything more than 5 fonts your mind starts to get confused and it starts to look messy. So it becomes really difficult for the eye to scan and absorb the information. And that's how we know people use websites is they scan them first. So the rule is that we use.
Sorry to interrupt, but I was surprised to hear you say 5, because I think typically we stick to 3, right?
Okay. The last sentence I was going to say on this slide is the rule of thumb that we use is no more than 3 on a website. So that's the kind of the nice middle ground. And you'll see this website does incorporate 3 fonts into it. The other point I wanted to make on this website, the REI site, is using fonts that contrast in their style. So find just the right jacket in that little sign up box on the right in the white. That's what we call a serif font. Below that is a simpler, like cleaner line font that we call that a sans serif font. So they're using fonts really well to contrast each other, the styles that contrast each other. So you do want to do that. You don't want to use fonts that are too similar. It doesn't look good either. You want something that has a nice, a different look if you're going to use different fonts. Okay. Tracy
just made a comment. She said, if your ideal client is of a certain age, it needs to be readable. If it's too small, I'm out. That's the other thing about fonts is people tend to want to use very small fonts on websites that you have to like squint and get your face up close to the screen. You need to be able to sit back in your chair and still read it without squinting and straining.
Yep, totally. And that's part of a good web design. So your line height actually should be about 150 times the height of the actual line of copy. So your web designer should know this, but if they don't, right, that's the rule. The smaller the font gets, the larger the space between the lines should be to make it easier to read. So that's kind of a rule as well. Negative is positive. So I want to talk about white space or negative space. We all need that breathing room in our designs to make it attractive. So I think Google did a research study, and it showed that really complex designs were less perceived to be as beautiful. So something like that has a low visual complexity and has enough white space or negative space, that's the things that aren't there, right? is perceived as more attractive. That's why, and I think Apple is one of the examples I use in here. They are perceived as really classy, really elegant. Anytime I talk to somebody about design, they talk about Apple. Oh, I love Apple's look, but it's a really minimalistic look, right? So that's really important for our eye. This is like an example. So Dropbox. You see how what you notice first is the title, and then the button, what they want you to do, and then maybe the graphic. So it's not all cluttered together, all competing for your attention, as it were. Same, I just mentioned Apple, right? They want you to notice a little bit of copy, and then the beautiful picture of the beautifully designed MacBook, and then they want you to do one of those three things down there. Google's homepage is another example. It's uncluttered, and it points you exactly to what they want you to do, which is a search. It's just their logo and the box. Boom, done. The average user has a really short attention span. So using white space helps you to not overwhelm them and to help point them to what you want them to do. I just want to give two examples here. So on the left, if you just look at the photo on the left, you don't know what to look at first, and you're almost overwhelmed. It's like everything is competing for your attention, and you are getting confused. Whereas if you look at the photo on the right, it's all the same elements. The elements have different levels of priority, different sizes, and there's that nice white space. You just get that feeling that it can breathe, right? You're not getting overwhelmed with information, and it's the same exact amount of information. So that's a really important factor to consider. All right, on to my 6th point, color and contrast. So color is something that's underrated. Again, different people's eyes, right? Different ages of people using your website. You have to consider that. So color can say a lot about your brand. It can convey a lot of mood and emotion. So you want to choose something that conveys your brand properly. But other than that, you want to use contrast to keep everything readable. The headlines, the call to action, the text. So it has to stand out from whatever it's placed upon. So this is an example. This is a great example. Spotify. Lots of negative space, like our last point. They have their main message there, and then what do they want you to do? They want you to get Spotify free, and it really contrasts. That green on the blue really contrasts on that blue background, so you can really see what they want you to do. Okay, almost nearing the end here. The law of similarity. This is an interesting one. This has its basis in psychology. So it's called the law of proximity or similarity. And it helps users make logical sense of information that's presented to them. If you place it all together, they will assume that those are like things. So it's a mechanism that allows us to make sense of things that are presented to us and organize them. I mean, there's lots of information out there. It's noisy out there. If we can help our users stay organized when they're looking at our site, that's a good thing. So if you notice the image on the left, right, the spacing between, you're organizing them by, I'm organizing it in my mind as those are two separate things, those two rows, horizontal rows. Whereas if I use the spacing on the right, my mind organizes that, oh, those are all similar things. So I group them together in my mind, in my brain. Another way we do that, this is my website, is color blocking. So, and you see the boxes on the right-hand side with the icon, the purple icons on top. Those are all designed similarly. I get that that's part of a whole group of things. So my mind can digest chunks of information rather than being presented with a whole schwack of stuff that I don't know where to start reading and when to finish reading. It's just a natural way our brains work, is by grouping similar items together. So use design to help you do that, and use negative space and color blocking to all help you do that, to group similar things together. because we scan the site before we read it in its completeness. This is another site that we designed. You know, and if you have a great testimonial like we do, and you're putting it close to a call to action button that we have there, people will associate that thing with the call to action, even though it may not have been written specifically for that, but by virtue of it being in proximity to that, they'll associate it with it. So enough said on that. I think you guys get the point. The last point I want to make is about people and human faces. People love human faces. We're attracted to them. We look at them longer. When we see a face, we're triggered emotionally, right? We feel something, we empathize. So make sure to incorporate faces into your website, not just things. We connect with people, not things. I think Basecamp had a good study that they did that I think they had a sales page that didn't have any faces on it. And when they actually put faces on that sales page, the conversions skyrocketed by over 100%. Wow. So that's the only change they made. Yeah, it's huge, right? Faces help build trust, and they help drive conversions. So use that design principle in your website. I am going to talk about stock photos as well too. Like for instance, you know, large high quality photography is perceived as better than smaller images. You always want to use high quality photography, crisp photography, professional photography, but use real people in your design. People, you know, if you're the face of your business, it's really easy to go get a photo shoot done of you, your employees, real people, right? Because the other study that has come out is that people who look like models or look like they're posed and, you know, stock are less likely to draw the attention of normal people. So if you don't have to, don't use stock photography. Get a photo shoot done. Make sure your photographer takes a lot of horizontal photos, leaves a lot of blank space on one side or the other, so you can put a message or a button or a call to action on the side. And like I wanted to show just a bad example. I think I've harped on this company before. I'm sorry. A1 Granite and Marble. They're a company in my city. They're doing fine. So I don't think this is going to hurt them. But again, this is your building. Nobody cares about your building. You know, and then in their slider, they have a beautiful picture of a kitchen. That's nice and everything, but you know, kitchens were built for people to use them. So show people using them. Show your happy customers enjoying the benefits of working with you. That's going to connect more with your website visitors than anything. And look at this heat map. This is an ad. I think it's a print ad, but still, this would work. This principle would work on a website. People spend the most time looking at the face, and I believe this model was looking at the product. So if the people in your photos can be looking at your call to action button, people's eye will actually be drawn there naturally. So that's a great little trick. It doesn't cost you anything, right, to do that. People are attracted to faces, so use them. Use them in your website design. And I believe that is it for my presentation.
Yeah, that information is so interesting. I think a lot of times, if you're not like a trained designer like you are, Angela, people, they know what they like. They know that they're drawn to something, but they don't know why. And it's there's like these psychological things that designers have studied that helps make the decisions about what looks good. And so it's really interesting to find out. Like, I can't believe that Basecamp, if people don't know what Basecamp is, it's a project management software. Mm-hmm. They added people to their, pieces to their website, and conversion rate boosted, would you say 100%?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, just that's crazy that a little something like that could make such a big difference. So I'm, as everybody who's on this training today is either a business owner or a marketer of some sort. You're trying to figure out how to make your website better. A lot of times we overlook the design. Like we're like, oh, that looks pretty, or that looks nice, or that's my favorite color. But and you may be doing all the studying up on, you know, what's the best lead magnet and how do I do email marketing and social media and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, these little tweaks can have a huge impact. So this is really interesting. Thank you for sharing.
No problem.
So we wanted to mention that if you do need help with the design of your website and you just kind of want some insight from an expert like Angela and myself, or anything in your business, it doesn't have to be about the design. It could be about your calls to action. It could be about your marketing strategy. It could be about any kind of challenge that you're facing. We offer a 90-minute brainstorm whiteboarding session to the people who have attended our Facebook Live events. For $2.99. So basically what that is Angela and I will set up a Zoom call with you. We'll both be on there. We'll have you fill out a simple form ahead of time so that we know what it is that you'd like to get out of the call, and we can do a little bit of research ahead of time so that we come prepared. But we do this all the time with people who we've never met before, who have been on our Facebook Lives. We've also done it with clients. We do it all the time, and it's so fun to be able to help people kind of work through those challenges. Getting that outside perspective can be huge, especially from people who take the time to really study up on design and strategy and marketing and all of that stuff. So we would love to help anyone who is interested. You can just go to coalitionwebdesign.com/brandstorm to sign up. You can pick a time right on our calendars and pay right there. And we would be happy to help you through any challenges that you're facing in your business. But I think that is it for this week. So like I said, today was part 2 of a 4-part series. So be sure to join us next week. We're going to be talking about the highest value real estate on your website, which is that top section. When you first look at your website, before you even scroll, you know, you have to make an impression immediately. So we're going to be going into a lot of detail about what to include. So how can you get your messaging right? How can you get your imagery right? How can you get your calls to action right so that it's super effective, because that's what people see most of the time. And then on October 8th, which is the week after, we're going to be talking about nurturing your leads. So, you know, a lot of people get leads to their website. What are they doing when they come to the website? Are they you know, following one of your calls to action? And then what are you doing with that lead after they come to your website? Like we said in, I think it was last week's presentation, 97% of people are not ready to buy when they come to your website. So what are you going to do with that lead? You're just going to let them leave and they'll forget about you because they're busy? Or are you going to find some way to nurture that lead and provide value to them so that they'll want to come back to you when they are ready to buy? So I hope that you will join us every Thursday at noon Pacific, 1 p.m. Mountain. Is it called Mountain Time, Angela?
Mountain Time, yeah, that's right.
All right, so that is it for today. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we will see you next week. Make sure that you RSVP for today's event if you'd like the cheat sheet, and we'll be sending that later today.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.